Good morning everyone. I welcome you all for today's session. So in today's session we'll be starting with module number 3. One unit from module number 3 I already completed, that is torsion of shafts. So this is the remaining unit, which is beams. So before we go into the derivation part, let us first define what is a beam. So a beam is defined as a long slender structural member whose cross-sectional dimensions are relatively smaller than its length. So what does it mean? The length is very large when compared to its diameter. So such a structure we call it as beam. And in beam the loading is always transverse loading, right? So beams are generally subjected to transverse loading and they produce significant bending moment. Just because it is transverse loading, or you can call it as perpendicular loading, the load will be perpendicular to the axis, right? So that is transverse loading and they produce significant bending moment. The deformed shape of a beam is described by the transverse displacement, which we call it as vertical deflection, and rotation, which I also call it as slope of the beam, right? So we got to know what is a beam, what is the property of a beam, and how a beam is described in its deformed shape, right? We require two things: vertical deflection to describe transverse displacement, and we require slope or rotation in order to describe the significant bending, right? Now before we proceed to the derivation, which is one of the important derivations when it comes to beams, first we will be generating a correlation between Cartesian coordinate and a natural coordinate, which I'll be using in my derivations, right? So first let me go through this part. It is relation between Cartesian coordinate and natural coordinate system. Now very important from your exam point of view, and you should know this, right? So consider a one-dimensional bar element represented in natural coordinate system, right? Consider a one-dimensional bar element represented in natural coordinate system. Now this is what is the element I have considered. So there are three figures: figure number 1, figure number 2, and figure number 3. I'll be explaining all of these step by step. Listen to me carefully. So this is a bar element in terms of natural coordinate system. Okay, when I say natural coordinate, by this time you should understand it is zeta. Maximum and minimum values are -1 and +1, and this is the intermediate point or a center point where zeta is 0, right? So this is the first step what I have considered. Now in the second step, what I do, I am just indicating it by the magnitudes of zeta. I am just trying to show the element with the magnitude of zeta. What I mean here is, I was telling that at this particular point or at this particular node zeta is -1. So that -1 I am quantifying, or I am showing it with some distance. Okay, just because it is negative I have shown a downward length or a downward distance. I have quantified it. So this distance is nothing but -1. Similarly here at node number 2 it is positive +1. So from this horizontal line I should move up. I have quantified it, so I should move up. So this is zeta is equal to +1, right? So at this particular point zeta is +1, at this particular point zeta is -1. Now I will be joining this such that it passes through the center 0, right? So that is the second diagram. What I have done in the first, it is just a pictorial representation. In the second thing, whatever I have represented, I have quantified it. So here if it is -1, I have shown -1 with a negative unit because it is below the xy line or below the x-axis, right? And here because it is positive above x-axis, I have shown zeta as +1, and I have connected these 2 points such that it passes through the center zeta is equal to 0. Now since till now I have been using zeta, which is a natural coordinate system, now I will be introducing the Cartesian coordinate system, which is x, right? xy. Now I will take this as origin. From this origin, node number 1 is at a distance of x1, node number 2 is at a distance of x2, and I have considered some arbitrary point as zeta. Okay, it is a general point which I have considered I am calling it as arbitrary point because it can be anywhere in between 1 and 2. Now there are only 3 definite points which we know. Here at node number 1 zeta is -1, at the center it is 0, and at the extreme end it is +1. But intermediate zeta can take any value which is ranging between -1 to +1. So I have taken a point, a general point, and I am just assuming that the value of zeta in general is zeta right now. Okay, I am not given it any of the value, I have just assumed the value as zeta. Now, and the value of Cartesian coordinate at this point is x, right? So from this point, node 1 is at x1, node 2 is at x2, and the point what I have considered, arbitrary point what I have considered, so it is at a distance of x. Now in figure 3 what I have done, this line what I have drawn, -1 and 1, this inclined line what I have drawn, entirely I am shifting it onto the positive side. I repeat, this line what I have drawn, entirely I am shifting it to the positive side. What I am doing, I am moving this line like this, right? So this line is like this, because this part is negative, I will be shifting it entirely to the positive side. So what I will do, I will shift it like this. This point I will take it here, 0 moves here, and this -1 which was here, it will move up. So that diagram is figure number 3. Try to understand, very important, this inclined line whatever I am having right now between -1 and +1, I don't want this negative entity. So in order to do that, I am shifting it by a unit distance, so that this becomes 0 here, 0 becomes 1, and 1 becomes 2, right? I hope I am clear. Zeta was -1, so if it comes here, if you are adding 1 to that, zeta becomes 0. At the intermediate point zeta was 0, since you are increasing by 1 at each of the points, 0 plus 1 it becomes 1. Here it is 1, it is 1 plus 1 2. Now what will be the value of this point zeta if you are shifting this line, right? If you are shifting this line, entire line, by unit distance, so this point will also shift by a distance zeta plus 1, right? This point will also shift by a distance zeta plus 1. This was zeta. Since you are shifting everything on the positive side, so here you will be adding +1, right? Because that is what I have been following, don't get confused. Here I have added 1, here I have added 1, here I have added 1, so it simply means that at zeta also I need to add 1, and that is what I have written here, zeta plus 1. Fine. Now I'll take this as A, B, C, D and E. Okay, and every one of us have studied the concept of similar triangles in school. I am using the same concept here. From the concept of similar triangles, from figure number 3, AB divided by AC is equal to BE divided by CD. Now what is AB? AB is given by x minus x1, x minus x1. Now AC, this is the distance AC, it is given by x2 minus x1 is equal to BE is this dotted line, it is zeta plus 1, so taken it as zeta plus 1. CD, the magnitude CD is 2. Now x minus x1 divided by x2 minus x1, so x2 minus x1 is nothing but the length AC, which is nothing but the entire length of the element. So that is the reason instead of writing x2 minus x1, I have taken it as length of the element. Right. Now next is equal to 1 by 2 into zeta plus 1. Zeta plus 1 I'll take it on the left side. Remaining terms you keep it aside. So it is 2 by LE x minus x1. So zeta is equal to 2 by LE x minus x1 minus 1. So this is the relation between Cartesian coordinate and the natural coordinate. Right. Now going one step further, if you differentiate this with respect to x, will be getting 2 by LE, x will be 1, x1 will be constant, so its derivative will be 0, and 1 is also constant, its derivative will be 0. So d zeta by dx will be 2 by LE, and this is what I require in my further derivations, and that was the motto behind telling you all these things. Right. So I hope this is clear. Now I'll be proceeding further. Okay, so very important derivation from your exam point of view, okay, as far as beams are considered. So derivation of Hermite shape functions for a beam element. Derivation of Hermite shape function for a beam element. Okay, we already studied what is the shape function in our previous videos. So when it is applicable to beams, we call it by the name of Hermite shape function. So in order to derive that, I have considered a beam element, right? In the natural coordinate system itself, it is minus 1, zeta is plus 1. Okay, at the intermediate it is 0. Total length is L. So because it is the center point, it is L by 2 and L by 2. Now in the definition part, I told you that a beam or a deformed beam is described by two entities. One is the vertical deflection, which is vertical deflection. Whenever you apply a load, if it is going to deform, then at this end and at this end you will be having a transverse displacement, or you can also call it as vertical deflection. So that I have shown it as Q1 and Q2. Right. Whenever you apply a load, it is going to deform. Whenever it is going to deform, these two extreme ends will be vertically displaced. So that I call it as transverse displacement, and it is indicated by Q1 and Q2. Simultaneously, these extreme nodes are also subjected to rotation. So those rotations I have taken it as theta 1 and theta 2. Right. So now Hermite shape functions will satisfy the nodal values, right? So Hermite shape functions will satisfy the nodal values, that is the boundary conditions, and nodal slope continuity shared by two elements. I have taken two elements, so Hermite shape functions, whatever I am going to derive, those will satisfy these nodal values as well as the slopes. Each of the shape function is of the cubic order. That will check out whenever we derive. So we'll observe, or we'll get to know that it is of cubic order. So my first step is d zeta by dx is equal to 2 divided by LE is equal to 2 by L. Now if I have not derived this previously, then you may wonder why I have taken this directly, right? So that is the reason in the previous step I have derived this d zeta by dx is equal to 2 by L. In your examination you need not derive this. You can directly take this step while deriving Hermite shape function. No need to show how this step has come. Right. Now consider a cubic interpolation polynomial as shown below. Okay, cubic interpolation polynomial. So v of zeta is a0 plus a1 zeta plus a2 zeta square plus a3 zeta cube. When I say cubic, you need to take it up to third order. Right, expressing above equation in matrix form, we get, so if I express this in matrix form, we get 1 zeta, zeta square, zeta cube, and a0, a1, a2, a3, such that if you multiply these two matrices, you should get these equations. Right. Now therefore v zeta is equal to p into zeta, so this I have taken it as P into zeta, or P which is a function of zeta. So this is P matrix and this is alpha matrix. Now taking up the same equation here, if you differentiate it with respect to x, right, dou v by dou x. So this dou v by dou x you can write it in an indirect way such that it is dou v by dou zeta into dou zeta by dou x. Why? Because if you cancel, right, if you are taking up this v equation and if you are differentiating it with respect to x, this you can indirectly write it as dou v by dou zeta into dou zeta by dou x, right. Now why? If you are cancelling this dou zeta and dou zeta, you will be ultimately getting dou v by dou x only, right. Now let me check out what is this dou v by dou zeta. So dou v by dou zeta is nothing but you need to differentiate this equation with respect to zeta. So a0 is constant, so it is 0. a1 zeta derivative is 1 plus a2 zeta square derivative is 2 zeta plus a3 zeta cube derivative is 3 into zeta square, right. So that is dou v by dou zeta. Next, dou v by dou x. Dou v by dou x is nothing but slope and you represent it by theta. It is very similar to dy by dx, right. So this is theta. So therefore equation 3 becomes dou v by dou x is theta, so LHS is theta, is equal to dou v by dou zeta. So dou v by dou zeta I have calculated, so I will take it directly, a1 plus 2a2 zeta plus 3a3 zeta square. Now what is remaining is dou zeta by dou x. So dou zeta by dou x is nothing but 2 by L. So that is from equation number 1, right. This was my first derivation before I could start with the Hermite shape function. There I have derived this. So dou zeta by dou x is 2 by L. Next, so next step would be applying boundary conditions. We get, now where I am applying my boundary condition? In this equation. This is where I am going to apply the boundary condition in order to get the vertical deflections or the transverse deflections, and this equation is the equation where I am going to apply the boundary condition in order to get the slopes, right. So I am having two equations, one is v equation and one is theta equation. In both these equations I am going to apply the boundary conditions so that I can get 4 variants. That is what I have done here. So first boundary condition is at node number 1 where zeta is equal to -1, right. At zeta is equal to -1, that is your first boundary condition, that is at the extreme left node, right. So v equation becomes v of zeta, so zeta value is -1, so I put it as -1. In the remaining terms you put the value of zeta as -1, so you will be getting this equation, a0 minus a1 plus a2 minus a3, you take it as equation number 4. Similarly in theta equation, if you put the value of zeta as -1, you will be getting this equation, you take it as 5. And at node number 2 where the other extreme value of zeta is +1, that will be my second boundary condition, you will be getting 2 more variants of v and theta, right. So v at zeta which is +1, you will be getting a0 plus a1 plus a2 plus a3, so this is equation 6, and you will be getting theta 2 by L, you will be getting this equation, you will get it as equation number 7. So using 2 boundary conditions and 2 equations, I am getting 4 combinations which are y1, theta 1, y2 and theta 2. So those I am going to express it in the form of matrice, right. So the next step would be expressing equations 4, 5, 6 and 7 in the matrix form. So you are having equations 4, equation 5, equation 6, equation 7. All these equations are to be expressed in matrix form, right? So in each of these equations, the constants which are common are a0, a1, a2 and a3. So that I have made it as a separate matrix, and remaining coefficients we need to jolt it in a separate matrix, right? Now in order to simplify further steps, I'll assume a is equal to 2 by L. So in this matrix I'll assume that a is equal to 2 by L. So the next step will be 1 0 1 0 minus 1. I have assumed 2 by L as a, so it becomes a 1 a. Wherever there is 4 by L, it becomes 2a. You are having a negative sign, so you are having minus 2a, right? So here it is 6 by L, so it becomes 3a. So remaining elements remain same. So now these y1, theta 1, y2 and theta 2, I call these as displacements. It may be rotary displacement or it may be vertical displacements. In general I call it as a displacement matrix, so I am denoting it by small d. This matrix I'll take it as matrix A, and as usual, since I have taken a0, a1, a2, a3 as alpha matrix in equation number 2, here also I'll keep it as alpha matrix. I am interested in alpha matrix, so I'll take alpha matrix onto the left hand side, right? So in that case, if you are taking alpha matrix on one side and shifting all other matrices on the other side, we will be getting alpha matrix is equal to inverse of A matrix into D. So that you take it as equation number 8, right? Now we know how to calculate inverse, so I have calculated it for you. So inverse is calculated by calculating determinant as well as adjoint. If you want to calculate adjoint, first we need to calculate matrix of cofactors. Then if you are transposing that matrix, we will be getting adjoint, right? So after getting adjoint, if you divide it by determinant, you will be getting inverse. Now in this case, this matrix what I have shown in square box, it is adjoint, and 4 is the value of the determinant, right? So it is 1 by 4. So this is the adjoint of A. I have not shown the cofactor calculation because we have done many videos, many examples where I have shown how to calculate adjoint. So that is the reason I have skipped it. So you do it, and if you are having any queries, please drop it in the comment section. I'll be replying for that, right? So continuing with the video, I'm having 1 by 4. So this is the adjoint. Now once again, I had assumed that A is equal to 2 by L. Now I'll be replacing it. So in this, but we know that A is equal to 2 by L. So wherever there is A, I'll be putting the value as 2 by L. So if I do so, in the next step, I'll be getting value of A inverse as this, right? 1 by 4, 2 minus 3, 0, 1, L by 2 minus L by 2 minus L by 2, L by 2, 2, 3, 0 and minus 1, and all other L by 2's with the first two with the negative signs, right? So that is A inverse. So from equation number 2, I have rewritten the equation number 2 here. V of zeta is equal to P of zeta into alpha, P of zeta as it is. Now this alpha, I will replace it by A inverse into D. How I have done this? I have shown how alpha is A inverse into D in equation number 8. So using equation number 8 as reference, I can substitute alpha as A inverse into D, right? So P of zeta or P matrix, which was a function of zeta, from equation number 2 is 1 zeta, zeta square, zeta cube. I have written it as it is. I have not changed anything. A inverse value I have calculated here, so that I have written it here 1 by 4 with the same matrix whatever I have got. And you know D is nothing but displacements, both translational as well as rotational. So it is y1, theta 1, y2 and theta 2, right? Now you need to simplify it further. So V of zeta is equal to this, you keep it as it is, y1 theta 1, y2 theta 2. Okay, 1 by 4. It is simple multiplication. I'll show you how. 1 into 2 is 2, zeta into 3 with a negative sign is minus 3 zeta, so minus 3 zeta, zeta square into 0 is 0, zeta cube into 1 is zeta cube, so it is 2 minus 3 zeta plus zeta cube. 1 by 4 I have kept it as it is. Now here in the second column, what you observe is L by 2 is a common factor. So L by 2, if you multiply by 1 by 4, what you will be getting? L by 8. I repeat, L by 2 is a common factor for all the elements in column number 2. So I'll take it out. If you take it out, L by 2 into 1 by 4, it becomes L by 8. So here what will be remaining? 1 minus 1 minus 1 and 1. So those coefficients, if you multiply it with these 4 elements, you will be getting 1 minus zeta square plus zeta cube. Right? Now once again for the third one, 1 by 4 you keep it out, 2 into 1 is 2 plus 3 into zeta square into 0 is 0 and minus zeta cube. Similarly for the fourth one, L by 2 is common, you place it outside, L by 4 into 1 by 4 is L by 8. Right? Now remaining terms will be getting minus 1, 1 and 1. So minus 1 into minus 1 is minus 1, minus 1 into zeta is minus zeta, 1 into zeta square is zeta square, and 1 into zeta cube is zeta cube. Right, so this is simple multiplication. Please don't go wrong while multiplying the terms. Now from the definition of the shape function, what we have studied, right, in module number 2 we have studied the definition of shape function. There we have studied that u is equal to n1 q1 plus n2 q2 plus n3 q3 plus n4 q4 and so on. Now for beams it is very important. For beams, this polynomial what I have assumed is v, so that u becomes v. Now n, which was a normal shape function, when it comes to beam it is called as Hermite shape function. That is the reason n terms are replaced by h, or n is denoted by h in case of beams. Now q1 is y1, q2 is y1, q2 is theta 1, q3 is y2 and q4 is theta 2, because here we need to take care of both vertical deflections as well as the rotations. So I have taken care of all the things. Now this equation can be written as v of zeta is equal to n is h for beams, so n1 becomes h1, q1 is y1, so I have written it as y1. So wherever there is n, you replace it by h with appropriate subscripts. So here n2 has become h2, n3 has become h3, n4 has become h4. So q2 is theta 1, q3 is y2 and q4 is theta 2. Okay, now so you have converted this normal general definition of shape function into a form which is applicable to beams, right? So this is the general shape function which is applicable to beams. Now this shape function, if you express it in the matrix form, we'll be getting h1, h2, h3, h4 with these displacements. Now if you compare this equation number 9, what I have written above, this equation number 9 and equation number 10, okay, so here you are having y matrix, theta matrix, y2 theta 2, y1 theta 1, y2 theta 2, same thing. On the left side you are having v zeta, on the left side you are having v zeta. It simply means that you are having 4 terms here, you are having 4 terms here, so these 4 terms should be equivalent to each other, and that is what I have done. So the first term is h1, second term is h2, third term is h3 and fourth term is h4. So those values I have once again listed separately. So these h1, h2, h3 and h4 are called as Hermite shape functions for a beam element, right? So thank you. Please share with your friends. Do subscribe my channel. For any queries, please drop a comment in the comment section. Thank you. Have a good day.